Hello, fiendlings. How the hell are you? I finished the new novel yesterday, my 20th, and I'm pretty happy with the ending. I have quite a bit of editing to do and a couple of known continuity issues to fix, but other than that, it's in pretty good shape. Not sure when I'll be handing this off to RTP since it has to go through beta readers before I even consider sending it. But I think I'm nearly 3 months early on the deadline. How's that for speed? Since I finished the novel, I'll be in the recording studio this week as I try and get Oceania ready for your ear holes. No publication date for Oceania yet. I'm still sorting out logistics with my cover designer. But rest assured, it'll be available long before the podcast ends. Now, how about some more Soul and Beyond? Be safe, have a great couple of days, and we'll talk again Friday. Here's episode 11 of Neptune Scars. Chapter 22. The design of the cube was simple yet complex in its own way. Gunny thought it looked ridiculous. The engineers had scaled up the design, and now the base measured 3 meters wide and 4 long. The barrel, a beast of a thing, could fire a graviton pulse larger than the weapons Black herself carried, although he imagined this contraption to be less powerful than what was aboard LeBlanc. At least this had been designed by humans in the trio instead of a blueprint handed down by the collective. Although Gunny inspected every design sent to him, every single one that appeared in the queue, eventually he'd missed the collective sneaking in something malevolent. He didn't want to be responsible for that. The collective had already proven they could hide certain design details from him. The experience printing Von On had made that clear. Humans designing and humans ultimately building is what humanity needed to survive and shrug off the collective once and for all. He just didn't know how the void they were going to get there. After examining the design again, he started the printers and awaited comments from someone. Usually, update messages, final tweaks to the design, or other random obstacles happened seconds after the print job started. Not this time. "Do you know what they're planning?" G asked. Gunny remained focused on the printer simulation, his consciousness scanning the results from thousands upon thousands of sensors, checking for defects at the micron level as the heads did their job. "Who is planning? The collective? No. You can leave now." "Well, that was a bit terse," G said. Gunny grinned. "Good. I was talking about your humans." "Not mine," Gunny said and turned. "They don't belong to anyone." G rolled his eyes. "Don't play me. I'm so much better at being me than you are." "The fuck do you want?" G had been floating above the deck in his usual Buddha pose, but descended to the printer deck, his bare feet nearly plummeting through the simulated metal. "We need to fix your sim." "I'll get around to it," Gunny said. "What are the humans doing?" She pointed at the device being printed. "They're heading for where Pluto used to be. Going to look and see if there's something like the scar." Gunny got a bad feeling. G wouldn't be here unless there was a problem. "And what are they going to find?" "The extinction event," G said with disinterest. "Or so it will be if it's allowed to continue." Gunny glared at G. "You're the collective. Close it." G's easy smile became a wolfish grin. "I'm not the collective, and they can't close it." Gunny took that in, his attention briefly wandering away from the print checks. "Why can't they close it?" "That doesn't matter," G said. "The point is that Oaks and Black are heading to Pluto's space to shift after that thing is printed." "Okay, so Black is going. She'll protect Oaks, and if there's an issue, she'll hightail it out of there." "That's the plan," G said. "But you know how plans go around here." Gunny chuckled darkly. "All too well, G." "Speaking of plans, nothing ever goes completely to plan, does it?" "What?" Gunny asked. "Plans. Has a plan ever gone, well, according to plan? I mean, isn't there always a step somewhere that you miss, or maybe the plan misses, that you have to get around, regardless of whether or not you're properly prepared?" Gunny nearly said no, but now that he thought about it, complications were the rule, not the exception. "What's your point?" "No one's plan goes according to plan. The universe doesn't lack it." "Chaos?" Gunny offered. "Chaos," G said. "Just when you think you understand something, new knowledge makes it transform into something else. Something more integral and concrete and meaningful pops into existence in either a beneficent or detrimental manner." Gunny growled. "You talk too much." "Always did, and I'm not going to apologize again for it." "I'll ask again then. What am I supposed to do about it? Xi's grin made Gunny want to slug him. Think about what I said, Cartwright. You'll get it. With that, Xi disappeared. Dunn, Talby, and Kalimura waited for Oaks in Black's Bay. The ship had been loaded with plenty of supplies, an SV Null, a towing assembly, and space for the Grav Lab's new toy, as well as the smaller version. Oaks would be able to tow either platform out of the cargo bay and into position. When he appeared from the locker room with his helmet under his arm, Kelly breathed a slight sigh of relief. For a moment, she thought maybe he was sick or had chickened out. She had a difficult time imagining him doing that last. She'd fought with the man. He was anything but a coward. He saluted Dunn and Talby. At ease, Dunn said. You need anything else? Murdoch to ferry my luggage, Oaks grinned. Afraid he's otherwise engaged, Dunn said and offered his hand to Oaks. They shook and the pilot turned to Talby. You bail first sign of trouble, Talby said. Oaks saluted. Aye, aye, sir. I mean it, Talby growled in his best Gunny Cartwright impression. I don't have enough pilots as it is. They shook hands, saluted, and he offered his hand to Callie. Lieutenant? Good luck, Captain. Hoorah, he said softly and turned to the ship. Kelly watched him walk inside the open cargo bay. A moment later, it closed. Kelly followed a silent Dunn and Talby out of the bay and back into the observation area. Black fired multiple thruster bursts, and once she was clear, the bay door closed. Watching the ship depart the station left Callie as empty as watching Von On's departure had. Lieutenant, Talby said, I have some new pilots for us to train. Us, sir? She asked in confusion. Aye, us. Sir, I'm not complaining by any means, but I'm not an expert yet. Probably won't be for... You know how to fly, he said. You can teach someone how to fly. Besides, they already know how to fly, they just don't know how to fly an SV Null. Oh, she said with a smile. That should be easy. And they don't know gunnery. Oh, she said a little crestfallen. Anything else? Oh, yes, he said. All four were getting ready to retire. Black pulled out of the bay and immediately turned for the shipyards. A few of the trio's automatons escorted her from Trident's border all the way to the shipyard's dock. Where Von On had once been harbored was a platform supported by multiple robots. The weaponized gravitic generator looked like a large artillery piece made sometime in the 22nd century CE. Although it appeared primitive compared to the weapons the collective had provided, and it had to be assembled before use, she thought it was a fine effort. It might even work. Oaks, fully suited, shepherded the automatons and their payload inside the cargo bay and led them to where he wanted it situated. Once in place, Oaks closed the cargo bay doors and headed back to the bridge. How long before you can reach non-human acceleration? 30 minutes, Black said. Please remain in your harness. This will be a hard burn. Oaks groaned knowingly, but his face held a smile. When the burn began, his smile disappeared. She and Oaks didn't converse much. There was little point. In a matter of minutes, he'd be stripping out of his suit and heading for stasis. Once safely ensconced, she could open up the gravitic engines. She'd never gone past 60% of her possible speed. She planned to hit 70% this run. She just hoped it was by choice rather than need. After checking in multiple times with Trident, Oaks finally made his way to the stasis pods and climbed inside. 10 minutes later, he was safe and asleep. Black opened the throttle. The gravitic drives came to life and she accelerated faster and faster. By the time she reached 70% of engine capacity, she had cut the engines and flipped to decelerate. The deceleration phase would be much harder than acceleration. She might miss the mark by a few tenths of an AU, but to know just how fast she could go, it was worth it. Black continued on in the darkness, her sensors scanning for anomalies and finding none. She missed the KBO drifting some distance away. It did not miss her. Gunny tracked Black until she passed beyond the Kuiper sensor network. One of the new probes the science team had requested had finished printing and sat in its hopper, the automatons awaiting their orders. He considered moving it to the dock, but had a better idea. In the space of a few seconds, he loaded the orders into the probe, simulated input and other criteria, and ran hundreds of thousands of unit tests. Once assured he had done everything he could, he ordered the automatons to fly the probe to the edge of the docks. Gunny followed the probe to the dock and stood next to it. He pointed off into space, and the probe's thrusters came to life. It accelerated quickly and engaged its gravitic engines once it reached the safe zone. Chapter 23. Shortly after Black departed, Callie found herself in one of the infantry conference rooms, one elbow on the table, and a large carafe of coffee close at hand. Talby sat next to her, looking as though he were trying to be friendly but didn't quite know how. After the first 3 interviews, she wasn't surprised. This wasn't getting them very far, very fast. The first 3 had been desk jockeys for more than a decade. The 4th was nearly 20 years Dunn's senior, and the commander was no youth and hadn't been for quite some time. Then again, they were all a little older these days, if not in body, than in mind and soul. Wizened might be the word, although she wasn't sure wisdom could be gained from the Battle of the Scar, apart from finally admitting to yourself that your entire race doesn't mean shit in the scope of your own solar system, let alone the universe. Then again, that was a pretty important lesson to learn. She only wished humanity had learned it earlier. Lowell sat slumped in the chair across from them, his wrinkles making him look as though he had a permanent grin on his face. In truth, though, he was smiling. The worst part? It was infectious. "Sergeant Lowell," Talby said. "This is Lieutenant Kalimura. She's in charge of the infantry and air support coordination." "Nice to meet you, Lieutenant," Lowell said. "I want to personally thank the 2 of you for saving our asses." "You're welcome, sir," Kelly said. It was difficult for her to remember that this man was formerly SFN, just as she was former SFMC. The former, however, meant he had nothing to do with Trident apart from being an unwilling co-conspirator, at least according to Solfed. Not military, just a civilian, and they were essentially asking him to join up again when he should be at home with a grandchild on his knee. "What can I do for you?" he asked, eyes bright. "Funny you should ask," Talby said. "What did you do in SFN?" "Ran tugs here at Trident, also in the Belt. It's what I was doing up until, well, you know." She did know. "Your SFN records say you trained on SVs." "I did," he said. "Everyone did back then. Couldn't fly them for shit, though. Bad in our ear." Talby raised an eyebrow. "How's a bio-nanny not fix that?" "Long story," he said, waving the question away. "Been flying a long time, though. If you're looking for a tug pilot, I might be able to help." Kelly couldn't wait to hear the man's response to the questions she had to ask him. This would be the 4th time she asked the question, and she imagined it would be the 4th time she got a look of disbelief. "We would like you to join Trident's Marine Corps as a pilot." Lowell's only reaction was to blink. "Support?" Kelly nodded. "Support vehicles only, no skiffs." "Nothing out of the cockpit?" "No, sir," Talby said, "and all we're asking for is your participation in some training. If that doesn't work out, you're free to go back to whatever it is you were doing." Lowell sighed. "Losing my fucking mind is what I'm doing." Kelly didn't know how to respond to that. Neither did Talby. "Been how many months since we became persona non grata with Solfed? I was supposed to retire, damn it, get my pension and spend it on prostitutes and THC, and this is what I get for an entire lifetime of service?" Lowell's voice had risen loud enough to echo in the conference room. Cheeks flushed, a line of spittle just visible at the corner of his mouth. He no longer looked like a kindly grandfather, but a rabid lunatic. Talby swallowed hard. "I'm sorry for your situation, sir," Talby said, but nothing, Lowell said. "You get me out of the game room 5 times a week for a couple of hours, I might be able to stay sane." "Deal," Talby said. "Where do I sign?" Lowell asked. "And when can I move in with the other Marines?" Dunn was once again in his ready room, only this time he was alone. Completely alone. Solfed was due to make a transmission soon, and he had to be here for it. Until the collective popped up their window, however, he was on his own. At least he could count on that for a brief moment. Black was still burning full bore further into the Kuiper Belt and heading to the very place Dunn thought this madness had ended. Only instead of ending it, it had pushed everything into overdrive. The artifact had detonated upon hitting Pluto, converting everything around it, including the massive exo brood, into a massive wave of energy. Had Black been near it at the time, she and her crew would have never returned to Trident. Now they had to worry about a scar or a portal or something out there, too far away from Trident to be easily patrolled or monitored. But you knew that. You always had to worry about it, he told himself. You now just have enough time to do something about it. Never enough time. Even when you thought you had all of it in the universe. Boredom was eternity telling you to get your ass in gear and live your dreams before they were taken away permanently. At least he wasn't bored. If Black found a hornet's nest out there, what would he do? He didn't have another ship, apart from the LeBlanc, and the ship didn't have an SE. Dunn didn't think there was a human here who could fly it anyway. Pilots. He'd hoped for 4, got 1. Talby was still sweet-talking another of them, but even that was 50-50. So maybe 2 out of 4? 2 pilots when he needed 10. No Marines when he needed 30. Fortunas was more than right to be concerned about their staffing. The fact he'd had to send Copenhagen to her bunk was proof of that. When he was finished with this call, he'd have to go over all the SFM personnel again, see whom Talby and Kalimura could approach about transferring to the infantry. So long as logistics didn't suffer from the shortage, it would have to do. The holo display crackled and the collective's window appeared on the right side. It flashed 3 times, and a new window appeared with the Sol Federation logo, which slowly dissolved into the feed of the same people he'd spoken with last time. The Admiral looked a little less sure of himself, as did the Chancellor. Abarak wore her usual gormless expression. Dunn still wanted to punch the woman. "Greetings," Dunn said, feeling like an idiot. It was the only thing he could think of saying that didn't start with a curse. "Hello, Commander," the Chancellor said with what seemed like a forced smile. Dunn was beginning to wonder if he'd missed something in the news. He didn't watch Solnet. "We have a question for you before we get started." "Ask," he said, already wishing this meeting was over. "Our astronomers have detected a strange phenomenon near Neptune." "Really?" Dunn asked. "What kind of phenomenon?" "Well, Abarak broke in. A pulsar-like wavefront that is visible in the high-frequency spectrum." Dunn tapped the interface a few times and a new window popped up in the corner of the holo display. On the holo display back on Earth, a new feed had appeared of the Neptune Scar, glowing and looking like a living creature. "That might have something to do with it." Abarak dropped the stylus she'd been playing with. "Is that what you call the Scar?" Dunn wished he could reach through the line and strangle her. "If you compare it to the feed we sent you before last meeting, and the time before that, and the time before that, then yes, that is what we call the Scar, for the 4th time." Abarak didn't seem particularly struck by Dunn's words. Her eyes were too focused on whatever display showed the cam feed. "It's beautiful," the scientist said. Dunn suddenly thought he should get this asshole together with Reed. They'd make an incredible pair. "Yes, Doctor, I'm sure you think so. Does this finally confirm what we've been telling you for months? Does it corroborate the collective's recordings?" The Chancellor glanced at the Admiral before turning her eyes back to the camera. "Not yet. However, we too believe there is a potentially hazardous celestial phenomenon in your space." "Well, at least you finally believe something," Dunn said, doing his best to keep his voice amiable, although he seethed inside. "What do you intend to do about it?" the Admiral asked. Dunn shrugged. "Got any suggestions?" The Chancellor paled considerably. "What are you saying, Commander?" "That we don't know what it's doing, and we surely don't know how to stop it." He wasn't about to tell them about the effects of gravitons on the Scar. "Was that your only question?" he asked nonchalantly. The Chancellor said. Abarak leaned forward and tinted her hands. "When did it start?" "When it started," Dunn said. "It's stable, and we are working on a few ideas." "Is it dangerous?" the Admiral asked. "As I said, we don't know. We only know there are stray particles pushed by it, but that's about it." Abarak didn't look pleased. "There must be more to it than that, Commander. Surely your sensors picked up other anomalies." "Perhaps that's a question for our science team. However, since they are no longer Sol Federation citizens and are more than a little bitter about it, I doubt they'll speak with you." "Are you trying to blackmail us into rescinding Article 15? "No," Dunn said. "I'm telling you there are consequences to actions, especially for those that accuse others of treason without evidence or trial." Damn, that felt good to say, he thought. If you take that as some sort of threat or blackmail, then perhaps you should listen to your own guilt. The Admiral grew a sharp-toothed grin. I have no guilt, Dunn. Commander, Dunn reminded him. No guilt at all, Commander, the Admiral said, emphasizing Dunn's title. Can you send a live feed of the scar to us, please? Abarak said. I'd love to study it. It's so beautiful. Stand next to it, he thought, then tell me you think it's beautiful. I'll consider it, Dunn said. Was the scar your only item of concern? The Chancellor shook her head. No, Commander. We wanted to tell you that your 137 candidates have signed their paperwork, been given clean bills of health, and are ready for transport. Dunn nodded to the screen. The Collective already sent Portunus the information. I believe they will give you details in the next few hours. My understanding is it will take the transport ship nearly 2 weeks to get here. Our understanding as well, the Chancellor said. That is still amazingly fast. You should see what my old ship is doing, he thought, but didn't say. Better than 3 months, Dunn agreed. Collective pedigree or not, all visitors will be screened prior to entry. Please remember that. The Admiral narrowed his eyes. Exactly what are you implying? Not implying anything, Dunn said. Just reminding everyone of the policies. Message received, the Chancellor said. I'm sure no one, she glared at the Admiral, will try anything underhanded. We have an agreement, and Solfed intends to stand behind it. That'd be a first, Dunn thought. As you say, Dunn said. Is there anything else? Yes, Arabak said before the Chancellor could answer. I would like all data related to the scar, please. It must be studied. It is being studied, Dunn said. By your scientists, Arabak said, pomposity dripping from the words. I think that in the interest of humanity, all data regarding the scar should be made public. It is a phenomenon that all humans deserve to know about and understand. As I said, Doctor, we don't know what it's doing or why. Then why won't you share your data? Arabak asked. It's a simple question, Commander. It is a simple question. The answer is no. We will not share our data until we understand what is happening here. You'll regret that, Commander, Arabak said. The woman was comical when she was serious, but looked like a raving lunatic when angry. As you may know, I have a lot of power here on Earth. I'm not on Earth, Dunn said. Not sure there's anything you can do to me, Doctor. Maybe not, but you won't always be out there alone. Dunn returned the Doctor's hateful glare with a mocking smile. You're welcome to join me here any time. Goodbye. He cut the connection, put his hands behind his neck, and leaned backward in the chair. Vacation. A fucking vacation. Abarak was right about one thing. Dunn was, in fact, keeping this a secret from the rest of humanity. Well, failing at keeping the secret, but the truth was that he hadn't intentionally kept it that way. With everything going on, he just hadn't even considered they would want to know about it, much less discover it. It was difficult to remember that although they might be 21 to 23 AU away from here, they were far more concerned about his existence than he theirs. He'd already written them off. Maybe they had begun to realize he was in charge of their only option, and it was time to get along. Or it was just another clumsy trap. Didn't matter. The Collective might hand the data over to Solfed in any case, or send a probe to gather it themselves. Interesting question, that. Would the Collective do anything for Solfed? They had kept humanity alive, Dunn included, but that had all been part of their plan. What happened when humanity was no longer part of the plan? A question he wished he could ask Black. He'd no doubt she'd have plenty of thoughts on the subject. If nothing else, listening to her always helped him solidify his thoughts and make sense of them. He missed her.